All right, welcome to my live stream. So, I want to say hello to everybody who has already joined me. And for those of you that would like to, make sure to say hello. For those of you that don't yet know me, my name is Rhonda M. Jordan, and I teach solopreneurs, people that are one person business owners, how to build a business from scratch where they can ultimately get to the point of creating and selling digital products. So I teach you things like how to build the audience. I teach you email marketing, how to generate or create a lead magnet. We also, as I mentioned, talk about creating and selling digital products. And then I also talk about how you can incorporate affiliate marketing into your monetization strategy. So if any of those things are of interest to you, definitely make sure we stay connected. I'm here each Wednesday at 12 noon. And today I'm going to actually be talking about 7 digital products that you can create this upcoming weekend or over a weekend. I'll say it that way. And the good thing about that is it's not as difficult as you might think it is. So feel free if you are on live to first and foremost say hello, and as always, I always tell you that you want to make sure you have something or some way to take notes with, whether it's pen and paper, whether it's the notes app on your phone, whatever it is, because there's going to be some information today that I think you can definitely benefit from, but more importantly, implement and really start getting to a point where you have that digital product up and ready to sell. As always, if you have questions or you need clarification on something, drop that into the comments. And for those of you who are watching the replay, hello to you as well. And I say the same thing. If there are questions as I'm going through the training, even though you're not on live, feel free to drop those in. I'll make sure to answer those as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Oh, it looked like we have, is it Hots Fire, Hots LZ Fire. I'll say it that way. Hello to you as well. And as I said, say hello if you're on. I always like to acknowledge you and make sure that we have the opportunity to know that you were here and part of this training. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into the information because I know that your time is valuable. And so, what we're going to be talking about, as I mentioned, is 7 digital products that you can create this upcoming weekend. But here's the thing, I'm probably going to give you more examples of digital products that you can create. And I'll also share with you kind of a workable strategy that you can implement to make sure that you can, in fact, get this created, because I think that there are some things out there kind of floating around in the internet streets where people think it takes quite a long time to create a digital product, and that could not be further from the truth, particularly with some of the tools that are now available. Oh, it's Sandy. Okay. Hello, Sandy. Thank you so much. That's much easier for me to read. Sometimes the screen is a little small, even though I have it enlarged, but just so you know that. All right. So, the thing I want you to really focus on is this. If this is your very first digital product, then what I want you to do, or if you've created a digital product and maybe you never released it or it just didn't sell well, I want you to keep things extremely simple. Now, write this into your notes. Whatever you create, I really want you to be able to create it in about 2 to 3 hours. That's how quickly we're going to get this done. Because my goal for you is not only that you create the digital product, but I want you to be able to have it up and ready to sell over the weekend. As I said, this is not just about creating the digital product, it's about making sure you can get it ready to sell as well. All right, so welcome to Denise as well. I appreciate you being here, and to the rest of the chat as well, she's saying. So, all right, so let's talk about, and I'm looking at my notes over here, so, and I also have my comments over here, so they're popping up. When you see me looking off to the screen, that's actually what's happening. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the specific things relative to your digital products. Now, the first thing I want you to understand is there are going to be Um, we've already talked niche, we've already talked about ideal customer. And if you don't already have those narrowed down, I want you to take a look. I have a live stream playlist that is loaded with content that will walk you through that. I'm going to assume you know what your niche is and you know who your customer is. So the thing that I want you to really keep in mind is that you really have to get focused in on how you are going to help them solve a single problem. Now, some of you, as you hear me share this, you're going to be thinking, well, how does this differ from a lead magnet? Hey, Yolanda, thank you for being on as well. I appreciate you being here. So I want you to understand that a digital product, how it differs from a lead magnet is it's going to be more robust. That's probably the best way to explain it. It's going to surely, still focus in on answering or solving a specific problem, but just think about it as going a little further. So instead of, let's say, a 5-page guide, it might be a 15 or 20-page ebook. All right. And I'm not even saying that, it has to be a full on any more than that. And we'll get into that as we go through it. It's also going to solve a bit more of the problem or go into a little bit more depth. And again, I'll talk about that as we get through that. But the other thing that I want to make sure that you understand is when you are creating this first digital product, the super simple one, is you're probably going to be selling it for a lower amount than what you're going to be selling some of your future digital products for. Because remember, we're talking about speed. We're talking about getting a quality product out very, very quickly. Now, let me go ahead and before I get into the specifics of which types of digital products you can actually create, one of the things that I want you to understand is some of you have already created lead magnets. And quite frankly, some of those, depending on the depth that you went into, it might be something you could actually sell, meaning it really could have been a digital product for you. So just understand that there are going to be some things that you may have already created, perhaps you have not yet released, that all you have to do is dust off the digital dust, as I like to say, and get it ready to sell. Make sure that it's going to answer the questions that your audience is going to be asking. All right, so let me go ahead. Let me just quickly look at to make sure I didn't miss anything on that opening. Okay, so the thing that I want you to think about as you're going through it, hey, Mickey, it's good to see you here as well. The thing that I want you to really think about is if I'm going to start with those of you that have created a lead magnet, you know what that individual was struggling with, and that's why you created the lead magnet. All right. Now, if you don't yet know what your audience is struggling with, or you don't really have a big audience, then what I want you to do is to kind of put your detective hat on. And there are a couple of places that you can go to figure out what people are, in fact, struggling with. All right. And again, I have in my live streams, there's tons of stuff on this, but I'm just going to quickly summarize it. One of the first places that you can go very quickly is you can head over to answerthepublic.com. That's an easy way to do it. Of course, you can use Google and YouTube's the autofill process, if you will. But one of the other things, and maybe the easiest for you, is going to be to use whatever your favorite AI tool is. So if you have, dipped your toes into the whole AI arena and and you're comfortable using it, then one of the best ways for you to figure out what's going on is to make sure you have trained your AI. I cannot say this enough, and I'll talk to you a little bit later about how I've trained my AI. Make sure it's trained, make sure it knows who your audience is, make sure it knows your ideal customer, and then simply say to it, I'd like to create my very first digital product. Can you give me 20 suggestions on things that might be of interest to them? them, things they're struggling with that I could create a digital product around. Now, as I mentioned, if you've trained it, it will very easily kick those things out. I don't know. It's like now creating digital products and lead magnets, it's so much easier than it was 3 years ago, where you would have to do a ton of different research. Now you can have all that stuff at your fingertips really within minutes. All right, now let me talk about training your AI. And I'm going to specifically use myself as an example of how I've trained both ChatGPT and Claude. Okay. So what I've done is I have given the AI access to a lot of information that will tell it who I am. That's one of the first things, so it can understand my background. I've also explained to it by allowing it to read transcripts of my YouTube videos. I've allowed it to read transcripts of my live streams. I've allowed it to read my website. All of these things have been fed into it using a pretty robust prompt that I created. And then what I did is I also gave it a picture, kind of an overview of who my ideal customer is. So my ideal customer, her name is Nicole. And an ideal customer is just a fictitious individual, kind of a grouping, if you will, of maybe several people, but I've pulled it into a document and explained exactly who my ideal customer is. So when I get content from AI, it's not random stuff. And that's what you want. You want to feed it as much information about who you are, what you teach, who your ideal customer is, your style of teaching. So, for example, recently, I started using Claude more, and I fed 50 live streams transcripts. So there's a way that you can go into, if you're using one of the tools that I use, you can go in and just get a transcript of your YouTube videos or whatever videos that you have. And then you can upload that into Claude or ChatGPT, and it quickly reads that. It quickly says, I understand how you teach. Your style is this, you do this. I know who your ideal customer is. So when I'm ready to ask it for information, it's not giving me random stuff off of the internet. I don't want random stuff, and you shouldn't either. I want it to know who I am as a person, what I teach, and then I wanted to suggest to me products that I could create, that I'm capable of creating, that my audience is going to be interested in. So when I tell you to use AI, please train it. Please take the time to train it. That's why when I ask Claude or ChatGPT to give me something, it's essentially giving me back my own words. Think about this for a second. Most of my transcripts for my live streams average about 22 to 25 pages of content. That's a lot of content. And you multiply that by 50 live streams. Oh, and I also gave it 104 email messages that I've sent out over the last 2 years. So it has a ton of stuff. As a matter of fact, it told me, quit creating content. You got enough stuff. All right, but that's neither here nor there. So when you are ready to create your digital product, if you have trained it, it will very easily kick out things that you can create, that your audience is going to be interested in, because that's the most important thing. It just does not make sense to create a product that there's no interest in that. So another way you can also find out, if you're not really into the AI thing, another way that you can figure out what to create or what could be a potential digital product for you is go through the comments section of a larger creator's YouTube videos, Instagram posts, Instagram reels, and so forth, and look for the questions. You're looking for questions such as, how do I, that start this way, how do I, what is, how can I, or what can I do to do X? You're looking for those how, when, and those types of questions, because those are questions that people are specifically asking, looking for solutions. What I'm telling you is there will be you'll be will not be at a loss for finding out what people need. All right. So those are all of the things as well. Hi, Miss Leona. I see you here as well. And you're not too far from me. As a matter of fact, I'm actually in Georgia. I see that you're there in South Carolina. So hello as well. All right. So we've talked about how to go about getting these things. So now that you have it, let's talk the specific things that you can actually create. I'm not going to do these in any specific order. But I do want to make sure that I give you the things that you can create very easily. Now, the first thing you can create is a checklist. Now, you might be thinking, but I could create a checklist as a lead magnet. You could, but here's how I would make it different. I would then throw in maybe 2 or 3 bonuses because now it's not just a checklist, it has some additional things that that individual is going to not only need as part of the checklist, but now you're kind of reading their mind, so to speak, and saying this would be helpful for them as well. This would be essential. So let me give you an example of how you might do that. So if you are a person that trains puppies, all right, and you give them a checklist of what they should have at home, then when they bring that new puppy home, then what you might want to do is to say, here are 10 frequently, and it's just a resource, a PDF. Here are 10 frequently asked questions that new puppy owners always ask me with my 25 years of dog training experience. So that might be resource number 1. The second thing that you could throw out to them would be, for example, when to take your things that your puppy might exhibit, which might mean that they are experiencing, some type of medical issue, when to take them to the vet, something like that, care instructions for the first 48 hours, care instructions for the first 30 days. That might be resource number 2. All right. Now, the third thing could be, and you guys know I'm not a puppy trainer, so, I'm making this stuff up as I go along, but then maybe a third resource. Now, think about it. You just took that checklist to a much more valuable object or option for that individual. And in some cases, they're thinking, well, yeah, this stuff is definitely going to come in handy. Now, how could you sell that? Well, you could sell the checklist for $7 or $9 or $5 or whatever it is, but you make sure to let them know that in addition to that, they're getting these 3 resources. All right. Now, what just happened? You now have a person that's thinking, not only did I get my checklist, I got these 3 resources. This stuff is really helpful. And it's from somebody who has 25 years of dog training experience. So obviously they know what they're talking about. It's almost like you buy something and in the store, and then all of a sudden you get more of what you were expecting. Stuff or more, something you weren't even expecting would be the best way to describe it. It's like, almost like Christmas that's showing up there. So just think of how you could do that. And for most of you, because you know your stuff so well, you could kick out some bonus resources in 30 minutes. You probably have some stuff on your computer right now that you could easily format into a PDF and add that on. All right. So that's how you can ramp up a checklist and make it more valuable. The other thing is when you're selling something like that for $7 or $9, that's no brainer. People will just buy that. And then, it goes through. But here's the most important thing. Once you get somebody to say yes one time, they're more likely to buy from you in the future when you offer other products. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right. So let me go back and take a look at some of the comments. So you have both ChatGPT and Claude. I love them both. Me too. And I find that some things, exactly, that's why I have both. Some things Claude handles better, some things ChatGPT handles better. All right, so let's go ahead and get into that. Any questions on how to do a checklist? Oh, and let me tell you this. The way that I would do it, I know that everybody loves using, they love using Canva, and I do too. But sometimes it's super easy to just go into Google Drive, pull up a Google Doc, type it in. You can add some, outlines around it, border outlines. Make it super simple. If you're comfortable with Canva, then go for it. But I don't want any roadblocks. So if the roadblock is setting this stuff up in Canva, then I'm telling you to just simply go to Google Doc and create it that way. All right? Okay, so the reason why a checklist is number one, super simple to make. You can easily create that in 2 hours. Matter of fact, you could probably create that in 30 minutes or so. All right, now, the other thing that I want to get into is this. When the next thing that I would create would be either a worksheet or a workbook. So this is product number 2. Now, again, when I talk about creating a workbook or a worksheet, I want people to start at the very beginning, really either not knowing a whole lot, but by the time they get through that workbook, they've planned something completely out, or a worksheet. All right, so let's talk in terms of some examples of things that you could actually create. So, for example, you could create a budget planning worksheet. That might be something you could would actually create. Another thing would be like a goal setting workbook. But here's what I'm going to tell you: don't make these things generic. They need to be specific to your niche. So, for example, if somebody is let's use that somebody is preparing for I'm kind of going off track here, but let's say somebody is planning for a visit from several family members who are coming for Thanksgiving. I can talk about this because I've had this happen. All right. So I'm not an expert, but I pulled it off. I'll say it that way. So you could create a workbook that shows them, here's when you start planning. So you're maybe one of the questions in your workbook is how many people are coming? How many rooms do you have in your house? Are you also responsible for cooking Thanksgiving dinner? And you have them work through this whole thing. So by the time they're done with it, they not only have the house ready for the guests to arrive, but they also have the whole Thanksgiving thing worked out where, maybe it's going to be where each person is cooking something. That's kind of what happened when we had Thanksgiving at our household. Each person was responsible for preparing something. We had a ton of family in the house here, and it was a great experience. But I didn't just wake up the week of Thanksgiving and start planning that. Some of you, that's your thing. That's where you shine, and you know who you are. Those of you that are on here that I'm talking about, you all could go all in on something like this and call it the Thanksgiving planning workbook, or something more creative than that. But you guys get the idea. Same thing. Throw about 3 resources into that. So maybe one of the resources is when to start grocery shopping for your Thanksgiving meal. Another thing might be when and how to prep the guest rooms. That might be another resource that you are throwing in. Another resource might be something along the lines of I'm just trying to think of if we're doing something as a family or as a group, what are some suggestions on how to appeal to different age ranges? So we had, when the family was here, we had college students all the way to, people my age, I'll be 63 this year, and older. So you have a lot of things, and we really got the college students involved. It was just a lot of fun. We also had to figure out seating for the family. So all I'm saying is think through things that you know how to do that you could put into a workbook for someone who's never done it. So imagine somebody who is hosting their very first Thanksgiving and they just don't know where to start. A workbook would be incredible for them. And so with a workbook, because that does require more, now you're increasing the price of that. So that's probably like a $17 to $27 product, because you're going to throw some other stuff in there, other things that would be helpful to them. As I mentioned, you might have a grocery list planning guide and so on. So I've talked enough about that. Let's also talk about some other things. Let's talk a morning planning routine. Now, again, a morning planning routine, don't make this generic. This needs to be a morning planning routine worksheet for people with ADHD, a morning worksheet, routine planning sheet for moms of toddlers. More, you see what I'm saying? So make this more specific than just something generic. The generic stuff is out. We need to focus in on our ideal customer and what it is they're going to be doing. Because I've seen too many people who are still trying to create a 30-day calendar. Well, a 30-day calendar for who? What does it do? What's unique about it? That's what you want to think through as you are putting together your digital product. So I hope you're seeing that with digital products, they're more robust. They just have more stuff that goes into them. So I'm going to quickly summarize just so you all know. So the first thing that we talked about was a checklist, and then adding a few bonuses to that, a workbook. And again, that's something you can very easily create in Google Docs. You can also do it in Canva, again, if that's something that you want to do. But the most important thing to understand about both of these is they're PDFs. So this is something that you can sit down, do a brain dump, ask Claude or ChatGPT to help you with some of the things. But here's what I'm also going to tell you about using AI. And I will stand on this and pound the ground as hard as I have to. Please do not take just generic stuff from Claude or ChatGPT. People are buying stuff from you because they want to hear about your experience. So I want you to include things about your experience in terms of, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've hosted Thanksgiving for 17 years, and there have always been at least 12 people in attendance. So essentially, the message you're sending is, I know what I'm talking about. Because as I said, you don't want people to feel like, well, why do I need you if you're just giving me generic stuff that's coming from ChatGPT? No, you have to put your experience into it. Maybe you still share some stories in your workbook or your About Me or wherever it is that you're going to put this in, that says, let me tell you about a big mistake in terms of not starting to thaw the turkey out early enough. Or let me tell you about not having a turkey that was large enough to feed the family. Or let me tell you about how I handle individuals that do not eat meat. Let me tell you how I handle, vegan dishes or whatever it is. So you're putting your own spin on it, your own personal touch to it. I like to say you're youifying it. You are putting you into that, which makes it a much more valuable thing than something someone could download. And this stuff works especially well if you have been creating content and you're starting to develop a following, because people get to know and expect things from you, which is another reason why you can't just kick out generic AI slop. You can't do that because your reputation's on the line. You want to deliver something that you would feel very proud for someone to be sitting there reading. You want people to look at whatever you're delivering and say, you know what? That individual, that person, man, they just know and they get me, and they're delivering this stuff to me in a language that I can understand. They simplified it for me. They made it easy for me to start getting the prep work done ahead of time. This goal worksheet that they gave me, man, this thing is awesome because they have ADHD and they're speaking a language that I completely understand. Okay. It might be a morning planning routine for people 70 and over who, have just recently stopped working. I mean, I don't know. You get what I'm talking about. All right. So what questions do you all have? And let me know whether or not any of this is resonating with you. All right. The other thing is a worksheet. So a worksheet is typically going to be a 1 or 2 page type thing. It's not going to be as robust as a full-on workbook. And so this, again, is going to be something you're going to sell for a lower price. This might take you back into that $7 to $9 range. But like I said, I always like to make sure that whatever you're giving them, I think I gave my students a YouTube planning worksheet. It was just like a 1 or 2 page guide, which gave them the things that have to be included in YouTube videos. And so, it wasn't as robust as planning out a full video and having them work through it, because that's what a workbook does. A workbook, as opposed to a worksheet. A workbook means by the time we're done with this, it's a full on plan that we are ready to execute against. Okay. All right. So, all right. And hello to everybody who's already on. I'll come back and say hello to you guys as well. All right. Now, here's another thing, a mini guide. This is product number 3. Now, a mini guide where what this really does is, again, this is probably going to be about a 10-page guide. Let me give you some examples of this, and this would be a simple one to implement. A quick start, well, if you're into this, you have to revise it for whatever you do. But I could do a quick start guide to affiliate marketing. That would be easy for me to do. And so how would I do that? What I would do is I would put in there the things an individual needs to do before they start applying for affiliate marketing programs. So I would say things like one section of the guide might be making sure that you have a visible presence, something, because these affiliate companies are going to check your profiles out to see if you even have a presence on social media or YouTube or wherever else. I could also put in there, please do not use free email accounts. Make sure you have a professional email address, because oftentimes that's how you get denied for a program right away. The other thing is you may have to be prepared to tell them what your plan is for marketing their service or their product. So there are a lot of things that you can put into a guide like that. Another thing might be 5 steps to planning your first YouTube video. Yes, that could be a great guide for someone. Now, I know some of you right now are thinking, why would somebody buy something like that from me when they could Google it, or they could go to YouTube? Because people want to learn from you. You are the one who breaks things down for them. You're the one that has explained things in such a way that they can understand it more quickly and implement it more easily. All right. The other thing is, a lot of people just don't want to be watching 25 YouTube videos and then trying to pull out the pieces from each one to figure out what works. Because here's what I can tell you. If someone's watching 25 videos, and let's say those 25 videos were done by 7 different creators, all of us are going to have a different way that we go about things. So now you just have a person that ends up confused because they're trying to pull together a strategy from all these different folks. Whereas what they could do is get your guide, have you go from start to finish with them, and now they understand it. All right. So again, people will buy because they feel like you can explain it to them in a way that is going to save them time, money, or just break it down in such a way that they get it. All right. So that is definitely a way to go about it. Now, let me see here. A quick start guide to building an email list. I could very easily do that as well. I want you to think in terms of, what are some things you can do? Drop that into the comments for me. So what is something that if someone said, explain to me X, Y, and Z, just give me the topic that you could talk about for 15 minutes nonstop and still have, 5 hours left of information. So I'd love to hear from you on that. Drop that in, because that's probably your next digital product, or could likely be a solid digital product for you. And remember, there are things that you do so well. There are things you understand so well that you might not even think other people would be interested in it, and they are. And the reason you might think that is you're too close to it. So, if somebody said, I'm trying to learn how to, I'm going to just use Denise because I see she's on here, how to can strawberries. Do you can strawberries, Denise? I think you do. I think you can. So anyway, obviously, I don't know what I'm talking about, but y- she could tell you that whole process, start to finish, and continue talking about it. So I know for a fact that could be something that she could do really well. All right, so let's see here. So this is Beauty by Alicia. She says that I've created a checklist for my book that I'm launching about hair balance and menopause. Perfect, because I can assure you there are people looking for that. And so the only thing I would say to you is make sure that you throw some resources in it to make it even more valuable. Do you always have to have resources? No, but I tell you what, that makes you stand out. That's the way that I would look at it. Denise says a quick start guide to a laundry routine. Perfect. Because if somebody is, let's say a new to a home, maybe there's somebody who just recently got married and their spouse has children and they're going from being a single individual to now having to do laundry for 5 people. That's a whole different routine than when you're doing laundry for a single person. So there's lots of different ways and angles that you can go about things. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about this mini guide, so to speak. All right, so I want you to think about this. One, what do they need to know first? This is when you're putting your guide together. What do they need to know first? All right. And so this is where you got to sit down and work through it. The second thing, what mistakes should they avoid? These are perfect things to go into your guide. The third thing, what steps should they take? You all know, and if you don't, I'm telling you now, I'm big on giving people information in logical, sequential fashion. Make sure that you're giving them step 1, step 2, step 3 in the right order so that they can follow it. Because that's what people want. They want to be guided through a process that results in them ending up where they ultimately want to be. All right. The other thing was, what should they do next? So they've gone through your guide. What's the next step? So let's go back to that planning guide for Thanksgiving. All right, so now they know and have this plan worked out. What do they do next? What's the very first thing you want them to start with? And so that should go into your workbook as well. All right? Okay, so Denise says, yes, you can make strawberry jam, strawberry puree, syrup, and so forth. Sandy says, I enjoy sales. I would like to come up with something to make the salesperson the trusted advisor. Perfect. Absolutely perfect for that. And I'll also throw in for you, Sandy, I'm sure you've probably experienced this. Also, maybe think about something else, which would be sales for the non-sales person, all right? Because that's one of the challenges that I see with a lot of the people in my audience. They're afraid to sell. They don't know what to say. They feel what comes to mind for them is the pushy salesperson that greets them at the store, the very front of the store, and they don't want to be like that person. Or the pushy used car salesman. They don't want to be that person. So consider something like that as well, because there are a lot of people out here that definitely want to learn they know they need to learn how to sell, but they don't know how to do it. All right. So that would be something as well. All right, so that was number 3. Any questions on the mini guide or the quick start guide? And remember, these don't need to be 50-page documents. These can be quick things that people can get through. Even with a workbook, I'd probably keep that to 10 pages or less. You just want people to work through and have the plan, and then throw the resources in for other stuff that they might have. All right, so number 4 would be like a template pack. But here's what some of the things that I want to share with you that I feel like people could definitely use. So maybe you have put together something that you use regularly. So when you get ready to do X, Y, and Z, you follow a process, okay? You could call this a checklist, but I'm thinking more so in terms of if I'm going to be posting content, for example, I go back to the same Canva file, and then I start with that, and then I create my next post. in that same file. But in that file, I have all sorts of different types of things that are in there. So yes, you could create Canva templates. Now, here's another one, and this is something I plan to create, which would be email templates. So here's the way I would do it. I would actually say, this is the format for a welcome series. And I would give examples of maybe 5 different emails that could go into a welcome sequence. Here's a product delivery sequence. So these are different things that you can do that will also stand out a bit. Another type of template would be something like Notion. So if you've put together a process that you follow and it's all mapped out in Notion or ClickUp or any of those, what you're able to do is to download a copy of that and, of course, take all your stuff out of it. But then that can be sold as a digital product, because what will happen is the new person just simply has to import that template you've created right into their Notion account, if you will. So that's another way to actually do that. Another thing would be like a client welcome email templates. So if you coach people, what you could do is put together, or maybe you already have created, your client welcome sequence or what you want them to do. Well, you could very easily sell that as a digital product, because somebody who's a new coach, they may not know what their sequence should include in terms of email messages that could go out. Another thing, if you're coaching, could be something like, what are the things that you're going to go through? So for example, I have a list of, I want to say maybe it's like 10 questions that I ask people, but I personalize it for each person that I'm doing a coaching session for. So that would be something else that you could do. Another thing would be, and we talked about this a little bit, but budget spreadsheets. So, but again, put your own spin on it, and maybe something like this might be a budget spreadsheet for people who get paid once a month. See, that's different. Or a budget spreadsheet for people that get paid weekly. Or a budget spreadsheet for people that are now combining households. So, if somebody's just recently gotten married, maybe they now need to form or put together a different type of budget if that's what they're looking for. So there are a lot of different ways that you can do this. A social media captions template, that could do it. So again, I would love to hear some of the things that you all have considered, or some things that you're thinking about doing, because I think you're going to find that if you can go into the subject line of, let's say, or go into Google or go into YouTube and type in how to and watch it auto-populate, those are all potential ideas, but you have to modify it for your niche. And then I always say, what else can you add to it to make it even more relevant? See, what we want our people to walk away from is thinking this: wow, I only paid $17 and I got a full X, Y, and Z. Or wow, I only paid $7, but I got all this additional stuff that they threw in that I know works because this person has multiple years of experience and they've put their experience and how they handle certain things into it. Because now when you sell a higher priced item, they're not afraid anymore. That first $7 product or $9 or $17, whatever the amount happens to be, that's your trial. You're on trial for a period of time with your audience. But once they see what you deliver and how you deliver it, you've got them, because you have to remember that that person who buys from you, or customers that buy from you, those are likely to become your repeat buyers. It's definitely going to be much easier for you to actually sell additional things to people that have bought from you than it's going to be to sell or really be able to sell something to someone for the very first time, and specifically to someone that does not know you. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind as well. All right, so Mickey says email templates really do come in handy. They absolutely do, because no one wants to look at a blank screen and have to turn it into something that may work or won't work. All right. And see, the way that I would do it is I would go through my email messages and I would look for the highest open rates, the ones that had the most click throughs on them. And then I would look at the subjects. What subjects did people respond to best? Which ones did they open most, and so forth? And so then those can become, because those are proven, you know they work. So if you are selling those to someone, you can simply say, these have had the highest click through rates. These have been the ones with the subject lines that have opened up. And then what are some other things you can give to them? Well, it might be a power words that, help open rates. And you just give them a list of 100 words that, if included in their subject line, are likely to get it to open. So there's just all sorts of ways. You just kind of have to allow yourself to think through what would be beneficial to someone who's learning this stuff for the very first time. All right. I got to get going here because I'm not going from you guys, but make sure I stay within the time frame. All right. So a swipe file is product number 5. Now, a swipe file, for those of you that don't know what that is, it's just examples that you've gone through the internet and done screenshots of something that is working. So think about ads, think about think about headlines, think about ad copy, think about captions on captions on an Instagram post. And you're looking for things that people might use. So what you would be able to do is put all of these into a document, and you could actually sell that as well. Now, personally, a swipe file could be very helpful because, again, it's saving people time. They don't have to go searching all over the internet to find this stuff. You've already done the work. All right. And so you're just putting it into, I would just copy this into a Google Drive, a Google Doc. And then what you can do is simply share the Google Doc file, but you're going to make sure that you change it so that the individual is either getting it as a PDF, or if you want them to make their own copy, you can change out the URL that's going to be included in the delivery document, which will require them to actually make their own copy. So when they click on it, it's going to say, make your copy. That way, your original document stays intact. So here are some examples of things you could do with a swipe file. So it could be, like I said, 50 email subject lines, 25 lead magnet ideas. And then you can go through and find lead magnets that people have created. All of this is designed to kind of get the people thinking, what are some things that could be helpful to them? All right, so that is definitely something. If you're going to go about doing that, then one thing that I would do is I would choose an area where your audience gets stuck. I'll tell you one thing where my audience gets stuck a lot, because they tell me this, is, what type of lead magnet should I create? But the more important thing is, what should my emails say? I get asked that question, several times per week. Well, this is what should go in your email. And sometimes it's just simply because they've never written an email, or they just really don't know where to start. And a blank page is not a fun place to be. A blank document is not a fun place to start from. So that could be it. But what could be helpful to your audience? So, maybe it's recipes maybe it's side dishes for the Thanksgiving menu. That might be something. Maybe it is, let's go back to the Thanksgiving thing. It could also be dishes for vegans. All of that could go into a swipe file. And what would make this even more valuable is if you can come back and say, I've tried all these recipes. They've all been a big hit. Everything I've included is something that I would personally recommend because I've tried it and people loved it. That's how you can make it even more valuable. All right. Now, here's another thing, product number 6 that you could create, which would be a resource list or a toolkit. Now, let me explain to you what a toolkit is, and I'll also talk about a resource list as well. But a toolkit is not the end product, if you will. What a toolkit is, or won't allow them to create the end product. It will allow them to do it, but it's not the actual product. Let me explain it best this way. So if somebody wants to set up their give me a second to come up with a concept that would make sense. If somebody wants to set up their email files that they're going to be sending out over the course of several weeks or whatever, then what I could do is give them a toolkit that would include how to come up with topics for your email messages, what email messages should be included. So I would have things like a welcome sequence, and I would tell them about a nurture sequence that they should have in place. I would also have in place how that email list, if you will, should ultimately do a few things. One, it should spend a lot of time educating people. It should always have a call to action. And you should really be using something along the lines of the Gary V way of doing things, which is jab, 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 right hook. If you haven't read the book, here's the overview of it, which simply says that you want to give a lot more value in terms of educating and information that someone can use before you try to sell them stuff. So you could very easily throw that kind of stuff in there, because again, some people may think that every email they send out, they should be selling. No, they shouldn't. So your toolkit could include a lot of things for that. Let's go back to that Thanksgiving idea. What are some things that could go into the toolkit that you're putting together? Well, you could definitely put the workbook in there. You could put in recipes in there. So all of these things are part of an overall concept. Now, if I was going to put the workbook and a bunch of other stuff in there, now we're raising the price on that because you're giving them a lot more. So as I said, that's definitely going to be a $27, $37, maybe $47 item that you're going to actually be selling something like that for. Now, I also want to say this because I'm throwing numbers out, but I also want to say this. If you have not yet sold anything, then you might need to lower your price initially, get some sales, get some testimonials, and then raise the price later on. If you've been trusted in your field, people love you, they know you, you've got an audience, you don't really need to do that as much, all right? So another thing that you could include in a toolkit would be, or different types of toolkits, let me just give you a few more things, a home office setup toolkit. So you could list out, for example, the things that they might want to have in there. So for example, I could say something like, you'll probably want to have an extra monitor in there, and here are 3 different monitors that I would recommend. You'll want to have a way, if you're going to be recording in your office, you might want to have that in there, or if you're going to be doing Zoom calls. So the point of this toolkit is that it just simply gives them the resources to pull something off. It's not it's not that it's going to allow them to, let's say, end up creating a digital product, so to speak. Make sure that I'm giving you the information in a way that's understandable. If not, I'll come back and explain that more. All right, so Denise says your email sequence for a lead magnet was helpful. Then you followed up with five emails that supported the topic. Absolutely. See, especially that first welcome sequence, we have to make sure that we don't just send out something that says, or maybe you're delivering your lead magnet or your product. Don't just send a single email. Have something that follows up with that, and that actually goes back to the prior email. So, for example, in the welcome sequence that Denise is talking about, it says, here's your lead magnet. Then it says something like, I'm going to pop back into your email inbox tomorrow, and I'll properly introduce myself to you. Then the third one, I think, is a tip. So that one is sent out so the first one goes out immediately. The second one goes out the next day. The third one goes out 2 days after. And in that, you're giving them some type of tip or you could first now begin to introduce them to a product that you have as well. So it's helpful for people to have something that they can immediately implement without having to figure everything out on their own. All right, so what I would do there is for your toolkit, come up with 10 to 20 resources that are all around that same topic and put them into a PDF, and that becomes your toolkit. Now, again, a good toolkit you can sell for 17, 27, $37 because you've done so much legwork for people. You're saving them time. So definitely put that in as well. All right, now the next thing that I want to give you is this product number 7. And this honestly is one of my favorites. And this is a master class. Now, I know some of you don't want to be in front of the camera, and I understand that, but let me explain to you how a master class could work. And I'm not talking about just an information. I'm not talking about a webinar that ultimately sells. I'm talking about a paid master class. So what you're going to do here is you're going to come up with a topic that your audience is interested in, and you're going to sell this master class to them because what you're going to do is teach for, let's say, an hour. But you're also going to give them an opportunity, those who are on live with you, to ask you questions. You're also going to include as a resource a workbook for them to follow along with. Now, a good masterclass, you could very easily sell that for $37. And then you're going to turn around and sell the replay for the same amount. Because just because they're not on live doesn't make the information any less valuable. It's still valuable. So think about a topic that you could teach on camera. Something where you're walking people through a process, something where you're explaining a concept, and then all you need to do is to pick a date that you're going to do that masterclass on, and about 2 weeks in advance, you start to promote it. You start to actually tell people about it. And I'm telling you, if it's something people really are interested in, they will not have a problem with it because again, you're saving them time. You're teaching the information. You're putting your knowledge into it. And make sure, again, that you are outlining it. And what I would also suggest is when they enroll, then what you want to do is to put them into a welcome sequence so that you are not only telling them, yes, you're registered, but you're saying, here's some pre-work that you can do. If you have pre-work, you're reminding them when the workshop is going or when the master class is going to take place. The night before, you're reminding them, here's your workbook. Make sure you download it. Make sure you have your link. We're going to be ready to go at, whatever time of the morning. And then you get on and you do your teaching at the time that you have it set up. Now, here's what I would tell you about a masterclass. If you are going to do that, then you need to use something for the most part that's going to either allow you could use Zoom, but you need to really have it set up in such a way that you're not going to be getting interrupted by the individuals that are on there. Here's what I mean. If you are going to use Zoom, then you probably want to subscribe to their webinar. You can do it for a month. I think it's like $89 or $99 or something like that. And you're thinking $99. Yeah, but people are paying you $37. So it's going to offset the cost very easily. The reason why you're doing that is, again, you don't want people to be able to unmute their mics and now you've got all of their background noise. You don't want people to be able to unmute and start asking you questions. You want to be able to control the narrative, and using the webinar feature as opposed to a regular Zoom meeting is going to allow you to do that. And then you can say, we'll take questions, write your questions down. We'll take the questions at the end, and then you take 30 minutes and you answer those questions for them. How are they getting the questions to you? Through the chat feature. That's how they're going to get stuff to you. But I'm telling you, a masterclass is great. Can you do that or map that out in 2 hours? Absolutely. It doesn't take any time to map out a masterclass. Here's how you're going to do it. You're going to have the topic of whatever it is that you're going to do. Make sure that the headline is catchy, that it speaks directly to the audience you want to attract. You have to very clearly state what they're going to learn in this masterclass. And then you're going to come on, or as part of your outline as well, you're going to introduce yourself, your background, your qualifications, and then you're going to start going right through the information. You're going to, throughout the course of this, you're going to be saying to them, so now you've learned X, Y, and Z. You're reinforcing the fact that whatever it is you said you were going to teach them, they're learning that. So now you've learned how to do this. Next, we're going to move into this. Then you summarize it. Now you've learned how to do that. So by the time you get to the end of your content that you're including in the masterclass, the problem that they were dealing with has definitely been solved. So you have delivered on whatever it is you said your masterclass topic is going to be. Now, for some of you that are comfortable on camera, that's what I'm going to tell you to do, because number one, if you've already been teaching, being on camera is not a big deal to you. Secondly, you probably have loads of content around that topic that you could very easily put into a masterclass. And then the third thing is, I can't tell you how much credibility you will gain, even from people that don't know you well, by you being on camera and teaching, because you're doing something that most people will not do just by simply being on camera and teaching that topic. All right. So how do you guys feel about a masterclass? Let me know in the comments if you'd be willing to do a masterclass, because a lot of you should be doing masterclasses and actually selling those as well. All right. Now, the next thing that I want to do is give you a bonus product. Yeah, we've got time to do this. Now, the bonus product that I want to teach you about, and I won't have a lot of time to go into this, but I'm going to put it in your head and then I'll touch on it in a future live stream. The bonus product is an app, all right, that you can create. Now, some of you are like, an app? Come on, I barely know how to use chat. If you know how to use ChatGPT or Claude, you can create an app. There's something called Vibe, V-I-B-E, coding. I did it Monday. I vibe coded, which is nothing more than sending your messages in Word format to chat or to Claude and telling it exactly what you want to create. So I had this, and I won't go into details because it'll ultimately end up being a digital product, but I had this thing that I had created, and I said, I want to make it more like a dashboard so that people can just simply enter their information, and this is what it's going to do. This is the color scheme I want. These are the features I want to include. And then it kicks something out. I'm like, nope, we're not there yet. This is what else I need to add. You would be shocked at what you could create. And then once it's created, so with the chat, you're just going back and forth with it until it finishes and actually delivers what it is you want. So this is where I'm like, you know what? Creating digital products is so easy. Now, with this particular tool, I would definitely not sell it for any less than $37. Matter of fact, it probably would be more than that. But I'm just saying, some of you don't even realize you already have the skill set to vibe code an app. Imagine just saying, this is what I want to create. This is what I want it to look like. This is what I want it to do. And this is all in And this is all in a chat box. And then you just keep going back and forth with it. So in a future, like I said, course, I will definitely, or live stream, I'll definitely talk more about using vibe coding in order to actually create apps. And then all you're going to do, once you have it working the way you want it, whatever your app happens to be, is now you're just going to be promoting it and selling that. And you'd be shocked at the number of people that when they can use a tool like that, to get resources. Maybe it's to get your recipes or to get your whatever, to help plan that Thanksgiving dinner, whatever it is that you're going to be doing. the ADHD morning routine, whatever. You can program all that stuff without needing to know anything about coding. Let me tell you, the last coding course I took was a long time ago when I was in college. If you asked me to sit down and code something, I could not do it, but I can vibe code, and so can you. All right. So we'll talk more about that, but that's where some of you are going to really shine once we get into that. And the last thing, I'm going to throw a second bonus in that you can do it. If you're comfortable with prompting, you could actually sell an AI prompt pack. So let's go back to something that we've been talking about for a while, planning for Thanksgiving or the new puppy that's coming home. You could put together a series of prompts that all somebody has to do is pop those into their favorite AI tool, and now it will start the process. But by doing that, what it's going to do is start giving them information. Because, see, here's the thing. Most people are not good at prompting. You have to be really good at prompting to get the very best results from ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or whatever. So you could sell a prompt pack. Maybe it has, 10 prompts in it, and you sell it for $9 or, whatever the amount is that you're comfortable with. But all I'm saying is I want you to really start to think in terms of what are some ideas that you can come up with and how can you put it into a digital product? All right. Now, once you have it into the digital product of your choice, now all you have to do is get it into a way that you can actually sell it. What do you need to sell it? Well, you're going to need a payment processor like Stripe or PayPal, and you're going to need a place that you can actually sell it. Now, my personal favorite that I'm going to share with you, and you guys have heard me talk about it before, is going to be System.io. You can look below. There's a link that I have where you can set up your free account to get started with System.io. But there are also other ways that you can do it. So it could be something like Stan Store. It could be, pretty much any of those. Now, for those of you who also know me, I'm not a fan of Etsy. I want you selling on a platform that you can control so you can also not have to worry about someone knocking off your product as much, and that you can sell it for what the product is truly worth. So I forget the other one. There's Stan, and there's one more that's out there. If you guys can think of it, drop that in there as well, because all of these, the most important thing is that you have a way to sell it. If you use Kit, which is an email service provider, Kit will allow you to sell digital products. So there's so many different ways that you can do it, but I want you to find the one that's going to work best for you, master it, and put it in place. Now, one of the reasons why I really like suggesting System.io is in time, you all will want to create funnels. And a funnel is where you're going to be able to sell more than just that single product. And it's all going to be done in the same sales process. So you'll be able to do your initial front end product, add an order bump onto the order form, and then have some upsells. All of that in the same process. The reason why that works so well is because people already have their credit card out. They've already entered the details. So adding on the additional products is not a big deal. And what it's doing is increasing your average order value. Again, I don't want to go into a lot of this because that's really kind of outside of the scope of this, but I want you to start thinking ahead. So when you start setting up your process, set it up in such a way that you can grow with that process, or that the system you're using can grow with you. All right. Okay, so let's see here. Denise says, I want to do a masterclass. I already advertised that I would do a free one, so I need to get that done. Something short, but a laundry lab masterclass. You can absolutely do that. I also want you, Denise, to think in terms of other things that you can actually charge for, masterclasses that you can charge for, because I know for a fact that you have an audience that would love to learn from you. And that's true of most of you that I know on this broadcast. You definitely have people that want to learn from you. And sometimes the reason why you're holding back is you're afraid that if you ask them for money, by offering them another product, that they might look at you differently. Not in most cases. Will some people feel like, oh, I don't want to pay for anything? Absolutely. But some others will. And you just have to get comfortable with moving them to your paid products. And if you've been delivering great quality information, especially over a period of time, people are definitely going to be interested. And remember, you're looking for ways to help them save money or become more efficient or just learn something they don't know how to do. All right? Okay, so I've gone through and I've talked about that. So what's your plan for this weekend? Your plan, if you're going to create your digital product, is I want you to go through the process of identifying a problem you know you can solve. So even though you might find a lot of problems that your ideal customer is experiencing, if you don't know how to solve it, I need you to leave that alone. I want you to solve something you have personal experience with. I want you to set 2 hours on your clock, and you're going to go through the process of getting that product outlined and created. It's got to be a simple one because we're doing this in the weekend. Then I want you to get it ready to sell. And so that's where I actually look below this, you'll see there's a video that is linked in where I show you how you can set up in System.io your product to actually sell it. Step by step, I'm showing my screen, you see it all. All right, so that's definitely what you want to do. The next thing is I need you to test that. So whatever strategy you decide to go with for selling your digital product, do not release it until you have thoroughly tested it, meaning you go through, you buy the product, you make sure it's delivering the email message that has the link to whatever it is. You make sure that the product is solving the problem. You do all of those things. And once you are ready to go, now you can actually release it. Now, again, this is all about the products. This is not about teaching you the process behind the scenes. I'll do that in another training. But I want you to really understand this because I think for some of you, you may think that digital products are more difficult to create than they really are. And they just absolutely are not difficult to create. They're so simple. And like I said, with the use of AI that has been properly trained, you can do it. Because some of you guys are sitting on a mental gold mine. You've got so much information in your head that somebody would gladly pay you for. And they want to hear about your experiences. They want to learn from you. I don't care who else is teaching it. They want to learn from you. So let me give you an example. I want to learn, if I'm going to be hosting that Thanksgiving dinner, I don't want a rookie teaching me that because there's too much on the line when you've got 17 people showing up for dinner. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you have guests that are staying with you. No, I need to learn from somebody who's done this, somebody who can teach me the things that I need to do in the order I need to do them. And tell me the stuff that could go wrong so I can plan for that or try to avoid that. Same thing with any topic. People want to learn from someone who knows what they're talking about. And I'm going to tell you, this is why I'm telling you, do not pick a topic you have no real experience in because people will figure it out very, very quickly. And so that's why I want you to talk about something and create a product that you know like the back of your hand. And remember, your first digital product, it doesn't have to be a brilliant tool that is going to live on forever because you're probably going to change it up a little bit. People are going to come back to you and say, they're going to ask you questions, and then you can add that into your digital product. Or you can think about another product that you could then lead them to. So the first goal is just getting the first product done. Keep it as simple as you possibly can and get it up for sale. All right. Okay. So the last thing I want to tell you is if you like this kind of training, I'm here on Wednesdays, 12 noon. I also have a community on School, the Digital Business Roadmap, where you can, in fact, learn the different topics that I teach. There is a completely free version that has 2 or 3 free master classes in there. Tomorrow I'll be doing a Q&A session for the entire community. You just need to request to join. And if you decide you want to go further, there are some additional levels that you can upgrade yourself to, but you'll get a lot with just the free version. So with that being said, I'm going to get ready to wrap up. Let's see here. Have to go, but you'll listen to the replay. The replay will be up as soon as we are done. And I always say, if you like this information, please give the video some thumbs up, share it with others that can benefit from it, and plan to join me next week, Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, where I'll be back with another topic that can help you build and grow your digital business. So have an awesome day and an even better week, and I will see you either in the community or I will see you next week on the next live stream. Take care and have an awesome day. All right, bye.